Parshas Likkutei Torah, Parshas Balak, page Ayin Gimel, second column, approximately middle of the page. Okay, the Rabbi at the beginning of the Maimer asks why by Avraham, you're not allowed to say Avram after the name was changed to Avram. On the other hand, by Yaakov and Yisrael, it is. So he says the question is, why doesn't the Neshama come down into the world? So he says because the real answer is, there's many answers. The Rabbi says the real answer is because Shama comes down to be about tshuva. In the Gan Eden it's a level of tzaddikim. Down here they come down to be a level of Baal tshuva. And he says that there's different levels of tshuva. One is, this is what we're in the middle of now. The first level of tshuva is sur meirah, meaning to make sure you don't separate yourself from Hashem. And he says the only thing that separates the Jews from Hashem is the level of Avinei Seichel. And he says that the whole inyan of Elokeinu, meaning it becomes ours, that's similar to the concept of he squeezed his Shechina between the two poles of the Adam. So he asked the question, if Hashem's all over, what does it mean that his presence is between the two body Adam? So he started answering that, so he says, in the world Hashem is there, but it's concealed. And being body Adam is revealed. And the last thing we learned is like this. Okay, let's see it inside. It says in different places, Shebalukus and Shaykh Klal Inyan Ustalkus is Pashtus. And Alukus, you can't say he removed or he's here. Why? Kim Inyan Helam Vegilu. In other words, Hashem is all over. You can't say there's a place Hashem is not here and there's a place Hashem is here. The only thing you could say is there's a place where Hashem is revealed and a place where Hashem is concealed. Shebahem as a Shemaim Ani Malei, but is be a level of Helam. Achem ben Badi ha'oden, between the two poles of the Oden in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, then Hayemeir Bechinas Gilu. Then it was revealed. So that's all by Elokus. You can't say that. So it says, what's the first level of tshuva? The first level of tshuva is sur meirah, that the person doesn't want to become separated and have the level of godliness completely concealed within them. Like a Moshe that he's going to explain later. It says like, the second you want to do something, you want to move your foot, you move it instantaneously. So obviously there's a level of machshav in the foot, but he says, I'm going to explain later. Thought in the level of the foot is a level of it's not revealed, it's only affecting it superficially. But in the brain, thought is openly revealed and not elum ma'akiv levad. Like it says in Vayikach Kerech, in order for the infinite level of Elokus to be revealed in a revealed way, then you need the level of tzimtzum. Because if infinite revelation is revealed in a finite being, so then either the finite being platses, it can't exist anymore. Just like speech. What does speech do? Speech limits either the intellect that you're trying to teach or the emotions that you're trying to reveal. That is all limited through speech. And compared to the teacher teaching, with the limitation that he does through speaking to teach it, that's a limitation as far as the teacher goes. Therefore, to become Elokeinu, it has to be Zayidei Tzimtzum. And he says, Lochein le'nizke, we mentioned this yesterday. Lochein le'nizke b'china zu al kol hashemas. Therefore, this whole concept of Numa, ours, is only on the name of Elokim. Okay, which means like this, because Elokim represents Tzimtzum. So on a level of Elokus, which is limited, then you could say Elokeinu. But you can't have Havaya Nu or whatever, any other of the names, you can't have that level of hours.
Right. Too great a level.
So he says, Lochein, okay, V'zeu inyan tshuva echad, this is the first level of tshuva. In other words, Alter Rebbe is saying like this. The purpose of the neshama coming into the body, he explained at the beginning of the Maimon, is to become a Baal Tshuva. Because he asked the question, if the purpose of coming into the world is to get reward to go to Gan Eden, so why don't you just stay there?
Yeah.
So the answer is, the neshama comes down to become a level of Baal Tshuva. So let's take a second to explain that. What does it mean to become a level of Baal Tshuva? The Rambam says the uniqueness of a Baal Tshuva over a tzaddik. Why Hashem? The Rambam says, why does Hashem like a Baal Tshuva better than a tzaddik? Because a tzaddik is S-O-S-O. It's the same old. It's nothing exciting.
But he worked when he comes.
Baal Tshuva, who sinned and now comes back, that's a unique situation. The Chassidus gives the mashal of the bird, the parrot that talks, even though a person talks much better than a parrot. But this is a uniqueness that a bird talks. So Hashem likes the Baal Tshuva. Why? Because that's something unique, that the tzaddik is the same old, the regular guy. So what's the purpose of the neshama? Purpose of the neshama, the coming in the body, in a Yetzer Hara, and even in that dark place, still does Torah mitzvahs. So what's the first level of tshuva? That the neshama comes down to be about tshuva. So he says, the level about tshuva is the bechinas elokai bekirbi. The godliness should be within me to make it elokeinu. Not, God forbid, that a separation is from Hashem. Let's see with his parentheses.
It's how he continues to grow. It's not just that he's just tzaddik. It's not like, oh, he's a tzaddik and forget about it. The tzaddik is constantly working on himself to even become greater, no?
A tzaddik works with himself, but it's all in the same type of nothing new. Okay, anyway, so let's go to the kids on 146. She said, "V'akveini gimel tshuvas." There's 3 levels of tshuva. Liasur meira shloya v'niseicha mavdilim, that the avera shouldn't be separating the Jew and Hashem. V'az nasa b'chinas elokeinu, and then it becomes internalized. V'zal baruch ato Hashem elokeinu. Ve'inyan pirush elokeinu means tzimtzum shchinasei, that tzimtzum was limited, and chelek havaya ame havaya elokeinu. Okay, so what? I think that part we skipped, but what does Havaya Elokeinu mean? Havaya Elokeinu means the level of Havaya, which is infinite, comes down into internalized in the level of Elokeinu. Class is sponsored by Avram Aradian. Is that what you said? For Atzloch Rabbi. Okay, Ois Beis. What does it mean? He says the first level of tshuva is to make sure that Vedas don't separate us from Hashem. So he said, what does it mean? So he said, Mavor B'Gersa Tshuva Parakeh, in the 5th parak of B'Gersa Tshuva explains, Hashem blew the neshama into Adam Arishin, or into every single Jew, which is Amshach and B'Pchinas Pnimis HaChayis. Like we learned, the Alter Rebbe explains, there's dibur and there's blowing. Everything in the world was created with speech. Speech represents the external level, like by a person. Speech, you could talk. It's a very external. Blowing represents the pneumius. You blow your whole, as they say in Yiddish, the kishkis come out. Your guts come out when you blow. So when it says by everything in creation Hashem spoke, that means it was an external revelation of godliness. Hashem blew into the Adam Rishon and to each one of us a neshama that shows the pneumius achayis, which is chelek havaya baruch hu, which is mamish, a part of Hashem. Shal derech moshe kodem nefech leizel makim. So he says, therefore Hashem blew the neshama into us. So now when you blow into something, that can only work if there's no blockage. If there's something blocking the blow, then it's not going to reach its destination, so to speak. If a person blows somewhere, if there's something separating between the blower and the thing blown into, the blow can't reach there. The same, this is all from Yosef Tshuva. But if there's something separating between Hashem's blowing and us receiving, then it's not going to happen. So he says like this. Again, this is all from Mamish Yosef Tshuva. Nothing can separate between a Jew and Hashem. Like it says, but the only thing that can say, like we said yesterday, the Gemara says, even an iron curtain cannot separate a Jew from Hashem. The only thing that can separate a Jew from Hashem is Averis.
This act of blowing was not a one-time blow, it's constantly blowing. Right?
Those that daven today, or at least said brachas today, said, Va'ata nefachta bi. In fact, in Perek Beis of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, V'yibach b'apav nishmas chayim, Va'ata nefachta bi. So not only every year when we're born, Hashem is continuously...
Nefachta past tense, no?
Yeah, nefachta bi past tense, but it's continuous. So it's nefachta bi, he blows into me. So therefore the neshama is being blown in. If somebody doesn't have Eira, then God forbid, it becomes separated between them and Hashem, between them and Elokus. Why can an Aveira separate nothing else? Because that is against the will of Hashem. Okay. When a Jew recognizes and he realizes that mechitza that he created between him and Hashem, which causes a separation between Hashem and the Eden, that is the secret of the concept of the pasuk. Okay, this is what it says there. Okay. This is what the expression of that Maimer says, that he causes a separation. The Av, when the hashpah comes, if you have a light and you have a very thick curtain blocking the light, so that light can shine on the world because it is being blocked. It's blocked by the thick curtain. In fact, Alter Rebbe in the Yosef Tshuva says there's, even in clouds, there's thick clouds and there's a lot of thin clouds. See, the Alter Rebbe speaks about, because the pasuk also likens Averis to the clouds that block the sunlight. You can have a thick cloud and then you can have a lot of layers of clouds. Now the Rebbe says in Yosef Tshuva, interestingly, that a lot of thin clouds can block as much as a thick cloud and even more. Which understood in the human language is you can wear a big heavy coat, and you can wear a lot of thin layers, and the thin layers, a lot of them will keep warmer than a thick coat. So therefore, what is this concept of Averis? Averis block the level of revelation of Hashem, that Hashem is blowing, okay, and we're blocking the light, we're blocking the sustenance. Not only that, it says like this: if the light is going, and you don't let him in, he's going to go somewhere else. So therefore he says, the Alter Rebbe says here, when you do it, says, "Ein gil elukus ba'olam," it conceals completely, and that's and therefore it causes the hashpah to Shechina best spheres denega. It causes it to go to klipa. You're not going to let it in; it'll go somewhere else. Zel mechitza mafsekes. Well, the Inyan is ki Yaakov chavol nachalosi. Yaakov is the rope of Hashem's inheritance. Vayidei ha'adam mashvot tzatzmen. It's with this that a person lowers himself. Laham shechachot taivis gashmin be'isr. To do forbidden taivis. Or even behet permissible taivis, which is also klipa. Shem nimshachem yacholas v'klipas. This causes upstairs his slavish hashpah ha'tata b'es spheres denega. We learned the Holy Guest of Tshuva is based on what the Zohar says, that Tshuva is Toshuv Hey, returning the letter Hey. And he explains there's a higher level of Hey, the lower level of Hey. It's simple Avedis, and he says the Shechina blowing into us, that's the lower Hey. It's the lower Hey. So if we're the rope of Hashem's inheritance, so when we go down, we schlep the Shechina with us down. We schlep the Shechina down lower also. So not only are we not getting Elokus, we're dragging godliness into Klipa. That's what happens when a person does an Aveda. And he says even more, even if you're not doing an Aveda, it's permissible pleasures. It's kosher, glat kosher, holy shchita. It's toshem neshachem echam haklipas. It causes the heitata, oksheis, and tshuva. Therefore, when a person does tshuva, and he uproots his will from worldly pleasures, the level of toshuv heitatolim, that the letter hey that you dragged into evil, now you're returning the letter hey, toshuv hey. So you're turning the letter hey, you're returning that level of godliness together with your uplifting yourself. You're elevating that back to Kedusha.
Why are we permissible? I know pressing and doing too much is not right. But why are we permissible mitzvah?
Non-permissible mitzvah.
Pleasure.
Worldly pleasures.
You're right. Why would we go to Klipa? It's permissible.
If a guy lives to eat, not eats to live, a guy lives to eat, or lives for houses, cars, clothing, whatever, right? That's the purpose of their life. Instead of living for Torah and mitzvahs, that's not exactly what Hashem wants us to do. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, when somebody eats Taivas, it lowers it into Shalosh Shivas HaTameis.
When somebody enjoys eating tzedakah,
That's a mitzvah.
it's a pleasure also.
Yeah, but that's Shalei Lishma Ba Lishma. But that's Torah mitzvahs. You're not going to say a guy fresses like a chazer, and that's a mitzvah Shalei Lishma. It's not a mitzvah Shalei Lishma. It's an Aveda.
Chocolate cake? What do you consider that one?
Chocolate cake. I mean, his understanding of enjoyment chocolate cake. What happens is, at that moment, you lower the klipas neiga into shosh kibsatmeis. A person has to think that why, beside making a bracha, I mean it to be healthy. So if I don't have chocolate cake, I have something else. Big deal.
I understand that. That point granted. But you eat the chocolate cake, you say bracha over it, you say ala michya and everything.
If you remember to say,
How could that go to Klipa?
are you eating to make a bracha or making a bracha to eat?
Both.
There's a big difference. If I'm eating to be able to make a bracha, that's very holy eating. If I make a bracha to get it and go eat it, that's a different story.
I have Havdalah in mind, I say the bracha, but I enjoy the cake.
You're supposed to.
We are not on the level, we are not on the level of dafki eating things we don't like. That is a level in Kedusha, by the way. But we're not on that level. But again, are you eating to live or living to eat? That's the bottom line of it.
But a chassid is not supposed to be miserable either.
Miserable in what?
You can enjoy his life without covenant.
There's enjoying life, again, you can't make it clearer than the expression, do you live to eat or do you eat to live?
I say flour, I say bracha on the flour, but I enjoy seeing the flour.
Do you enjoy it because I enjoy it, or are you enjoying the beautiful creation Hashem made? Is it you or God?
So the chocolate cake is made
I
by
don't
Hashem.
The chocolate cake is to elevate the food in ourselves to be able to serve Hashem better. You can have God in mind, but that could be secondary, not primary.
Which one is primary?
That's what he said. Are you making the bracha to eat, or are you eating to be able to make a bracha? Because then when you say Baruch, Atah, Hashem, Elokeinu,
I go to it.
and go eat. That's the question. What is the primary? What is the secondary? By a Jew, that doesn't mean, when you say primary, that doesn't mean there is no secondary. Is the primary me, or is the primary God? That's the difference. Last day by the class we were talking, when it says, Zeisa Teira Adam Kiyamas Ba'oil, this is the Torah. So the Gemara says, Eina Teimus Kiyamas B'mi Shemei Mesatzmi Alel. Torah can only have its existence on a person that dies for Torah. What does it mean, you're dying for Torah? Okay. If Torah is godly wisdom, for a human being to understand it is very difficult. Okay? So if a person is a refined human being, spiritually refined human being, then it makes sense that he's able to have a little understanding of godliness. But if somebody is what's called a grubbe jung, means a coarse individual, right? He's into himself, primary. There's no way a person can understand. That's what the Gemara says. Chassidus is a different story. Chassidus explains it in a different world. But the Gemara says, if you're not dying for learning Torah, that means your whole life, that's what you're dying for, meaning you're living for Torah. That's the primary thing in your life and nothing else. Then you're a refined receptacle that you're able to learn Torah. It's Hashem's wisdom. How could a human being understand godly wisdom? Chassidim of yesteryear, they said they were very careful in Iskafia, not giving in to the, because they said, how will we able to understand Chassidus, which is in Torah itself more godly, the pneumiest of Torah? How can we understand Torah for a coarse individual, a low life? Kiddush Shachar. Of course it's Torah. Why isn't it Torah?
It's so hard. If you don't understand it,
anything you don't know is hard. No, I mean it's hard. It's hard because it's not the normal way of learning.
The reverse works too, Rabbi.
Huh?
Means that if maybe after many years we understand a little bit of Chassidut, that means we are a little bit refined.
I mean, hopefully you did mitzvahs, you learned a little bit of Torah. It has to be fine. I told you I was once in a mikvah when I was a kid, a bacher in New York. I must have been probably 13 or 14. Anyways, you know, the Polish guys just sit in the mikvah and they talk in the water. So I come into the mikvah and the two guys are talking. He says, you know, mikvah is supposed to purify us. He says, to the other one, in Yiddish, you're talking, you feel more pure than before the mikvah? So the other guy answered him, I heard this probably 60 years ago. No, 55 years ago. He said to him, a horse is a horse. But when you wash it, it's a clean horse at least. It's still a ferd. It's still a horse, but it's a clean horse. He said, we're a bunch of horses. It's a very deep thing, by the way, if you think about it. He says, we're a horse, but at least we're a clean horse. He said, we could be a ferd, a chamor.
So we're not expected to look at chocolate cake and see Hashem. We're expected to be just a little bit better horse.
Ideally, we should see the cake as a way of being able to make a bracha.
Is it possible that for our generation, are we horses?
Why isn't it possible? If Torah says you should do it, it's possible.
We're horses.
So we're horses.
At least it's not a donkey.
What?
You're killing every enjoyment of life.
That's my job. When the Alter Rebbe was talking to Reb Shmuel Munkes, when the Alter Rebbe was arrested, he ran out of the house and before the Yutas Kisses story, he discussed with Reb Shmuel Munkes if he should go into prison or not. If he should. So Reb Shmuel Munkes,
Who's also sponsoring the class?
Reb Shmuel Munkes said to the Alter Rebbe the following: you should go to prison. If you're a real Rebbe, nothing's going to happen to you. And if not, you deserve to go to prison for taking away the pleasures of this world from thousands and thousands of people. So what basically he's saying, the Alter Rebbe, what did he do? He says, or let's take it a step, a little bit more our language. We're not on the level of not enjoying life, but at least we should feel guilty about it. In other words, Bichlal says this even in Musar Svarim. When a Jew sins and they still feel guilty about it, it's okay. You're fine. When you sin and you don't even feel guilty about it, that's when it's pretty bad. We have a Yetzirah, we sin, but at least if you feel guilty about it, there's a little spark of Kedusha there. You want to enjoy life, we're grubby young and we're all low lives, which is true, we're all low, we don't think that way, but we are all low lives, mamish, right? Okay, you enjoy it, but at least feel a little guilty about it. That's not what I should be doing. No, my goal in life is to enjoy life. That's it.
It's hard to believe how God created all these things.